Welcome to the Make and Design podcast. I'm Carina Gardner, and today we're going to talk about crushing it in our next year. Yes, we all want to have an amazing next year, and it seems a little crazy that I'm talking about it in October, but guys, everyone I know who crushes it the next year actually start the planning process in fourth quarter. In fact, for me, October 1st is a marker, and I know that I'm doing this after October 1st, but it's a marker for me to start annual planning for my next year, especially as a designer. And one of the things that I'm looking for is all the trends that are going on in fourth quarter, especially with Christmas time. I'm also paying attention to color schemes. And one of the biggest things I'm doing is I'm figuring out how to get 3 months ahead. I actually did an episode on this in my Design Your Life podcast. And in that podcast, I'm really trying to show people like how they can batch everything. It was so popular and so interesting that I turned it into a full seminar that I did in my virtual conference for my Design Suite makers, and then also gave it to our University of Arts and Design students because it's really such an important thing to learn how to batch in such a way that you can be multiple weeks, if not months ahead in your design process. It's a pretty cool thing. And really that starts in October as I figure out what the next year is going to look like. Now, really crushing it in the next year is not just making goals, because I do like goal setting. I think it's a really incredible thing, but it's really about figuring out what your next step is going to be. And as a designer, that can look like a lot of different things. And so I want to give you some inspiration and ideas about what your next step might be. Okay. Now, first of all, I told you the getting ahead thing is a big thing. So like the batching, figuring out how to get 3 months ahead. Those are some of the things that I like to teach. And I really, really recommend for you as a designer. Also understanding the calendar year, what is coming out, when it should come out. Those are all things that you should know if you've been doing this for a little while. If you're brand spanking new, then a program like the University of Arts and Design or a program like Design Suite will help you with those things because we put calendars in our workbooks and we're talking about it and helping our designers get to that next level. So what are the other things that you should be thinking about so that you can crush it in the next year? Now, of course, you want to be looking at trends, not necessarily because you're going to follow them, but so that you can be paying attention to what's coming up. You know, everyone talks about the economy, and we have been in a soft economy for a little while now, okay? All of this year. And one of the things I always tell people is even if it's a soft economy, you can make a good amount of money, right? And second of all, you're really building the foundation for our high economy years. And most people aren't thinking like that because they're not thinking about future selves. They're thinking about present. They're like, am I making the kind of money I want to make right now? And what I find is that the people who want to make good money have already pre-planned it into the next year, the next month, whatever that they're doing. They're doing the hard work now, knowing that it's going to pay off later, which I always like to tell the story of the ant and the grasshopper. That is exactly this situation. Okay, so other things to be inspired by, especially as you figure out what your special next step is. One of the first things I like to ask, especially my designers who have been at it for at least a year, like building their business, not just learning how to design, but really building their business for a year, is do you have a brand? Now, this is a hard question to answer. And it's because you might have started kind of building your brand, but you're really not all the way in or fully committed to it yet. But you have to have a brand in this day and age. With social media and with AI, there is nothing I can recommend more that in your second and third year as a designer or an art business that you are building a brand. And building a brand can look like social media posts. It can look like collaborations. It can look like building out a very specific style of product and marketing it and launching it. It can be a number of different things, but brand building is really what helps attract customers to you. Okay, so that's the first thing I usually ask people. Like, could you spend this year thinking about building a brand, building a visible brand that people could check you out and see what you are doing? Okay. So that's the first thing I usually ask people. The second thing in terms of really gearing up for the next year is figuring out what your one word or your focus is going to be. It doesn't always have to be one word. In fact, there have been lots of years where I haven't had a single word. Instead, I just had a focus, and I knew in a single sentence what that focus was. What was the thing we were going to focus on this coming year? I will tell you that we have a word for every company that we hold. So for my design company, I have a word. For our educational programs, we have a word. For the university, we have a word or a sentence that tells us what we're focusing on this year. And they're all different. Sometimes it's about maintenance, trying to maintain our current status quo. Sometimes it's about visibility, it's about brand. Sometimes it's about fun or playfulness. It depends on what your brand is trying to do and what you're trying to create. And it's okay to kind of play with it, but I think by knowing in October and starting to think about it, you will, over the next couple of months, come up with whatever the sentence or the word is for your next year, because you want to use this January start to your advantage. There is a lot of power in beginnings and endings. And one of the ways that we use January is as a beginning, end of the year, start of something new. And by having a focus or having a word, it will help you kind of manage all the activities in your business or manage all the activities in your design work so that you're doing the right things. Okay. All right. The last thing that I would really recommend that you consider and think about is calendaring your year. And I know that sounds a little crazy because you're like, oh my gosh, I'm just trying to get through till Christmas, right? But this is something that I do, and we actually do it in August. We started in August as a team because everybody has vacations on my teams, and maybe you're a solopreneur, so you're like, I'm not worried about it. But honestly, if you calendar your year out, you know what designs are coming out with each week, or you know what collaborations you're going to do, or you know what brand building things you're going to do, and you lay it out in a weekly format or a monthly format for the whole year, you will have just a bird's eye view of what the year is going to look like. And here's the coolest thing about that. When you know what a whole year is going to look like, and by the way, yes, do you have to be adaptable, and will it change? It will. There are things that will change in it. But if you have that view, you can pivot stronger. You can make better decisions about your time, and you can make sure that you're doing the right activities. Sometimes, and when I say sometimes, all of us, especially as designers, we get a little distracted. We are creatives. We want to do everything. I want to do sewing patterns and crochet, and maybe I'll do cross stitch patterns. And I kind of get into all these different things. But if I chart out my year and it seems really obvious that if I do these things or I produce this number of designs, then I am going to be successful. Then you have purpose and you have clarity. And suddenly when that shiny new object shows up, because someone's going to teach you how to do crochet patterns or whatever, you don't go down that path because it's not the right path for you now. Now, if it's somewhere in your plan that this is a piece, this is something that's going to help your business, it's going to up level you, then we take that class, then that is a powerful thing. But then by marking and charting your year, you kind of have an idea of what you need to move forward. And it's incredibly powerful. I as a business owner and as a designer can get distracted very easily. It's just easy to do. There's so many cool things I want to do, new things I want to try. And so I have to really have a lot of clarity, have a ton of focus so that I am doing the right things. And that's a really powerful asset to have that most designers, especially those not listening to this, do not have. They think that chaotic, fun design is going to get them there, that it's going to help them just produce style and make it a fun process. Now, I'm all about a fun process, but oftentimes it is the planning that goes around that chaotic craziness that comes with designing or creating art that keeps us on track, that makes it so that we're an actual business, that helps us become profitable. And that's what I would like to see you do, is make a plan that makes sense so that you have an incredible next year. And the only way to do that is to be very, very smart about the way you're using your time right now as you are moving forward. I hope this helped, and I hope it really has given you some clarity about some things you can start thinking about in this last quarter of the year so that next year is an incredible start. I am sure I'm going to continue to speak about this because for me, the last quarter of the year is almost mandatory that my following year follows up and does exactly what I needed to do based on this year alone. So it's pretty incredible stuff if you're willing to sit down and do the planning for it, start thinking about how I'm going to build my brand for it, getting and batching ahead so that, I know what's going to happen and there are no surprises. I say there's no surprises. There's no surprises from me. There's always surprises from the economy. There are new opportunities that arise, and you're going to be able to know whether you should take those opportunities or if they're not the right opportunity for you.
Want to hang out more? Go to designsweetcourses.com/free to get our weekly freebies and patterns, die cut files, and more. Can't wait to see you there.